Everyone, it's Adam Farkas. Welcome to another ODwire webinar. Thank you for coming out. I know that the pandemic obviously is still raging on across the country, but as we've seen on ODwire, people's practices are rebounding in a lot of different ways, depending on your location. And we have a lot of folks on the site who tell us that they've never been busier, in fact, because there was so much pent-up demand. At the same time, people are also telling us, their gross has been dropping a little bit, even though the demand has been high, perhaps due to slowdowns in their opticals, or because they're starting to get these holes in their schedules when people are canceling. So the rate of cancellation has been higher for a lot of people across the country. So, there are all these new challenges that we're all facing, adjusting the way we work during the pandemic. And that's really what this show tonight is all about. It's all about how to, transform your practice using new digital tools and try to run more efficiently, which everyone sort of has to do now in the era of COVID. And specifically, we're going to be talking about a digital refraction system, the Visionix VX65 by Luno technology. That's, you can sort of see the picture of the tablet up on the screen today. And we have a special guest here who actually uses the system, and he's going to talk to us all about how he's sort of transformed his practice using technology. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, just a reminder to everybody, you can see on the right side of your screen, there's a box that says questions. If you have a question throughout the webinar tonight, just type your question in there. I'll hold it aside. And at the very end, I'll ask the speaker the questions so we can have a little back and forth at the end. And I guess that is about it for now. So let me introduce our guest tonight. So we have Dr. Jordan Jones, who is an optometrist and director at Wear Eyewear in the Chicagoland area. Their practice actually has two locations. So there's one in Chicago proper in the downtown area, and then one on the south side in Orland Park. So his practice is a full scope optometry practice with sort of a high-end optical at both locations, with 2 ODs and 6 opticians. So his practice might look very similar to yours. So I think it's a really great thing that we can actually talk to him about how he's using this technology to improve his practice. And the fact that he has 2 locations, I think, makes it even more interesting. So with all my blabbing out of the way, Dr. Jones, why don't you take it away?
All right. Thanks, guys. And thank you, everybody, for kind of joining us today. As Adam said, we will be talking today about specifically Luno Technologies and the Visionix VX65, but I'm also going to kind of just generally and broadly kind of overview how and what we have done to, as you can see, kind of future-proof our practice and try to stay ahead of the curve, which in this case with the pandemic has actually served us pretty well from the jump. The agenda that we'll go through tonight, we'll kind of start obviously with the introduction, go through kind of our journey as our optical and as our practice into an integrated patient experience, kind of rethinking the usual, kind of the old school, new school thought, if you will, and then moving forward in our air quotes, again, our new normal, whatever that is, and as it's ever changing day by day, and how I believe that kind of the advancements in the technology and everything that we have with our Visionix equipment really allows us to do what I think is the most important thing, and that's really work on the patient education, allowing us to have more time for that. And then how that translates into helping the bottom line of the practice, which we all need and want, especially in the eras of shutdowns and everything else that we have going on. We'll finish with the recap and then go through the questions that you all have. That's me, or a younger version of me, when I had a little bit more hair. As we go through this, I was 12 years in practice. I graduated from ICO in 2008, stayed in the Chicagoland area. As Adam said, director of eye care at Wear Eyewear. We have 2 locations, again, one right downtown in the heart of River North, and one in a southwestern suburb, which is far more kind of family practice. I'd say the River North practice, a little different than the far south side and the suburban practice. So again, I think we have an interesting perspective on things. And then just about me, I truly am passionate about educating the patient about their system and kind of the overall health. And most importantly, I'm a full-time dad, 24/7, literally up until 1 minute before this phone call, I was changing diapers and making dinner. So that's how life is. Our personal journey into an integrated patient experience. We started, and I'll say again, kind of the global we, before I was even involved with the practice and with Wear Eyewear, it was started by 2 opticians, and they were under the guise of, again, kind of the high-end optical, no doctor involved. Let's get outside scripts and let's fill that and just kind of be the go-to place for a high-end optical in River North in Chicago. As kind of the year 1 turned to year 2, they started to realize that people were asking to have a doctor in the office, like, hey, can I get my exam here as well? And they realized that they were missing out a little bit on something. So as basically an afterthought, they decided to add a doctor part-time, kind of as many of us do, with, a day a week, a couple hours here or there, to just try to start seeing where that went. Had basically free donated equipment that they got through, networks that they knew, old stuff, again, everything that, barely still worked, but someone was willing to give to them. And the doctor started kind of practicing out of a closet and doing the very basic kind of bare minimum with the old school technology. I mean, we're not talking Shiatsu tonometry, but pretty dang close to that. I came into it and was, kind of wedged into that closet, and had just graduated in '08, and kind of had seen some of the newer stuff and saw what was out there. And I really kind of pushed to say, hey, as we're going here, if we're really going to make this into, an optical as well as a full service kind of and full scope optometry practice, we really need to kind of upgrade. And rather than upgrade into just kind of a new manual kind of setup, I wanted to push and kind of, again, future-proof us and move us into the technological era and say, hey, if we're going to do this, we might as well spend a few more bucks and get the latest and greatest and kind of have what everybody would want to have and what would make us stand out. We went through and we kind of evaluated some new tools and the programs to just kind of overall improve the patient experience. And again, my experience might be very different than yours, but again, I have partners that are opticians that are not doctor background. So for me, everything is kind of that hard sell of saying, hey, I need the technology that we all need and want. And they're looking at me and saying, well, how is this going to improve our bottom line? And can't you do it? You've been doing it in a closet with, a manual keratometer and a phoropter that barely works and a slit lamp that only moves to the left, but you've been making it work. How can we move forward from here? So for me, it's always kind of a hard sell, but I feel that gives me a good view, again, from like practice owner side and doctor side, of why we should do things and really, really evaluate what that's going to bring to the table. The kind of overview, if you will, kind of our traditional approach, what we've learned in school, if you're like me and you're 10 years plus out or 20 years plus out, I mean, everything is done by you manually, from keratometry, from refraction, from slit lamp exam, from, literally every single step of the way. You're collecting data, you're having to write down data, you're having to transfer the data over, and you're wasting a lot of time kind of getting that data collected, putting it in. If you move to kind of a screening model, again, now you have techs doing some of that stuff, but even there, again, in the past, it was limited on what they could and couldn't do. Now we're seeing, again, with the ability with everything that we have, and especially with, we have the full Visionix suite from Leno Technologies, but even from the very basic stuff, you can go from start to finish with very, very, very quick and efficient kind of processes that will pipe right into your system, that eliminates the transcription errors, that moves you from spending time collecting data and entering data into what I think, again, is the most important thing, and that is having that time with the patient to explain, to go over, to let them really know what our value is and how we can make things better for them and what we can do outside of the exam room. Really let them know that we're listening to it. I mean, if you look at spending, 5, 10, 12, 15 minutes of collecting data and entering data, you're turned away from the patient. You don't have the time to sit and look at them in the face. You don't have the time to ask them questions about their work setup, their home life setup. You might not even be able to elicit the correct question that would really make a difference in their life. And I think, again, that is going to help you create those kind of lifelong patients by just looking someone in the eye and really addressing their needs. This is the new approach, if you will. And this is the approach that I think is the right way to do it and the best way in the kind of the current setup. On the far left, you basically see the VX40, which is the Visionix version of a auto lensometer. You put it on there, it will read it, it will show you progressive zones, it does wavefront analysis. Literally, put it in, drop it, go. Very little training. You get the data, it's out. Kicks over to your system. You go into your next box, your VX100, 110, 120, 130 with the varying features there. Again, will allow you to screen from everything. It does topography. You can have tonometry. You have wavefront analysis, keratometry, pachymetry, everything all in one. And in about a 3-minute span, you have all of that data, more than most of us collect, generally speaking, because we're not doing topography on everybody, usually. But now you have it. Pachymetry on everybody, not usually, but you have it. All of these things that allow you to have all of the data in front of you. And then again, you can kind of parse through and see what's important to you in this case versus and not important to you, but you have all the data at your disposal in no extra time. Kicking over into, again, what we're talking about tonight, the Visionix VX65, the autophoropter. Everything pipes in, straight in, again, no entry, nothing there. You automatically have the wavefront data. You automatically have the previous lensometry. You automatically have a without correction all set up for you at the touch of a button and ready to go. Again, you can see how much quicker that process would be and all the data that you collect, which again leads us to that greater time to educate the patient. The workflow efficiencies, the less time spent on the data entry, our reduced risk of transposing data, that more time to spend, again, leads us into everything that we want to do as doctors, and that is treat the patient, not collect the data. Kind of, again, rethinking the usual and finding out what works for your practice. As Adam mentioned, and as I kind of said off the jump, we have two very, very, I would say, unique and different practices. Our River North practice in downtown Chicago is much higher volume. It's younger patients. It's young working urban professionals that are popping in and out between lunch breaks, that are able to come over for 30 minutes, break away from what they're doing. Most of them, again, are contact lens wearers, so a lot of kind of anterior segment stuff that we're dealing with. We had, in the past, always done everything with the doctor. So even though we had all this integrated equipment and we were using it, we as the doctors were still collecting the data. Again, although it only takes 3 or 4 minutes to do it, we were still collecting that data. And my initial belief was, by us doing that, we were creating a patient experience that would elevate over a different practice. Someone who says, hey, I'm going to pipe you from room to room to room. And I know, again, a lot of us have those setups. Some of you maybe don't. Maybe you have more set up like what we have with one exam room and patients come into one doctor. We are now in this time where, again, reimbursements are going lower. Time is of the essence. We need to shorten exam time to make the same kind of bottom line at the end of the day. We have to spend more time cleaning. We have to have time in between patients now to clean rooms and disinfect. With that, we have now implemented in the last couple of months pre-testing outside of the exam room. So we now, in our downtown River North location, we're running one model with pre-testing outside the exam room with the doctor actually not collecting the data, more your traditional kind of medical model, versus, again, what we're doing in our suburban location, which is still the patient walks into the exam room, they sit down, and they have this basically one-stop shop of everything done in front of them in 3 minutes. I'm explaining what's going on through it, kind of showing them the value add of what they're getting and how it's different than the alternative of where they've been before. We're going to kind of reevaluate when the beginning of the year comes in, and I've been in touch, again, we're keeping doctors separate at this point, so I'm only in the suburban location. My other doctor is only in the downtown location, and just kind of get a feel for, what are we gaining? What are we losing? Are we losing our personal touch? Because we believe, again, that our personal touch is what is our differentiator. And having the doctor explain and have the time to do that is that differentiator. We do not want to have to go to, 5-minute, 10-minute exams, well eye checks or whatever the case may be. But can we still get that same experience and that same feel in 15 minutes if it is 15 minutes solid of the doctor doing it and we have a well-trained staff collecting the data on the front end versus our traditional model that we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years? The digital refraction and kind of the huge benefits that have worked in the new normal are absolutely apparent and right in front of us. My own story, this is kind of pre-pandemic, and one of the things that was a big deal for me is I have chronic back and kind of shoulder pains. I played football through college. I actually had a spinal fracture that created some drama for me, and as such, sitting all day long and reaching across often created some issues. So from that standpoint, again, I know a lot of us, we have some neck and back pains. When you have this setup with the Visionix VX65, you have an untethered tablet. It literally is an iPad type or Samsung Galaxy tablet type that you can hold anywhere at any place with perfect ergonomics. And again, move and adjust yourself into a position where you're not going to have that repetitive stress type injuries. There's none of the awkward angles or spinning dials. You're not leaning over the patient, which again is different for now too. It's very important. We'll get to that. And again, from the standpoint of at the end of the day, I feel better with the ease of use. there are two modes with the Visionix VX65 by Leno. The autophoropter mode, which again is the screen that you see in front of us. If you've ever worked on an autophoropter of any kind, this is more of the screen that you're used to. It's run through, kind of a jog dial as well that you could run if you want to, or you can run it on the tablet as it looks in front of you. Again, there's a learning curve with it. Once you get used to it, it's very quick. It's very efficient. Again, it just goes, goes, goes. To your eye off the jump, it might look different, especially if you've never done anything like this and it looks intimidating. I promise you, again, if you give yourself a couple of refractions through it, it becomes very, very easy and you will really, really enjoy kind of and the speed with which you can do things. With that being said, again, they have lots of support. They kind of will work with you through it. I personally like this mode better. This is the mode that, again, 5 years ago, I started with our Visionix equipment. And as you can see, it looks like a phoropter. It's in front of you on the tablet, exactly as you've seen, as exactly as it's been there before, but it's now sitting in front of you on a tablet. Where you would normally spin up, you spin up. Where you would normally occlude, you would occlude. If you want to twist the dial, you twist the dial. You literally just touch where you would normally touch, and it responds in the way that a phoropter would respond. There is absolutely little to, I shouldn't say absolutely no, but there is little to no learning curve. And again, kind of as a side note, we recently had to have a fill-in doc at our downtown location, and our doc literally spent 10 minutes on basically a Zoom call with him and said, this is how you do it. And within 10 minutes, he was up and rolling and did 16 patients that day, having never seen the equipment in his life. So it really kind of, it takes the scare factor out of going into a digital format if you're used to the kind of the manual mode of everything. It is seamless and efficient and easy. Here we go. Our COVID, 6 feet or more. I used to joke with patients when I first got the Visionix VX65 that, I didn't even need to wear deodorant anymore because I didn't have to lean over them and didn't have to be so close to them. Some would laugh, some would be appalled. Again, some are still my patients, probably some are not. But in this era, again, where we do need to keep and be cognizant of that 6 feet or more to not only keep ourselves healthy, our patients healthy, but just to respect that space and to make everyone feel comfortable if they're coming into your office, that you're doing your part and that you can do it safely and efficiently. This is a huge thing that you can broadcast out to everybody and say, hey, listen, the old school way of people reaching over you, not at our office. We can literally run this from a tablet and be in a different room if we wanted to. But I grab my tablet, I slide back to the other side of my room. I'm 10 to 15 feet away from the patient. I can still see exactly what they're doing. I can judge, facial expressions, everything else that we do as we're going through our refraction, but I'm 6 feet or further away. It is a huge win. That untethered tablet, during this pandemic has been huge, huge, huge. And again, you're not within that 6 feet. So the whole concept of, hey, I'm 15 minutes or more and this, that, and the other, you will absolutely be well under that. So if you have patients that are concerned, you have the ability to really quickly kind of put them at ease and make them feel comfortable that you are doing your best to keep them safe and yourself safe through it as well. The staff side of it, again, if we go back to the kind of that screen earlier that you saw with the other Visionix equipment that does auto refraction, wavefront, keratometry, topography, again, it is one button push operation. The patient sits in there, line up, you're on the other side, you push one button, you step back. I am not within 6 feet of my patients, even though my room is only 12 feet across. Basically, for much more than a minute or less when I'm doing a slit lamp exam. Everything else I can do from 6 feet or greater away. If you have staff that is doing kind of the pre-testing, the same thing will hold for them. Single button push, away they go. You can kind of see again from just this slide, that whole concept. Again, you can imagine, if we were sitting there with trial frame, you're up in their face, they're touching, they're moving, they're shaking. You go to manual refractions we've done, again, the joke of they could smell your armpits. Well, from that standpoint, again, we're right there. With the Visionix VX65, you have that ease of use, you have the efficiency, you have the safety, you have the patient comfort, you have your comfort. Again, win, 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 win. It's almost too easy to just look at it and say, well, of course, why wouldn't everybody do this? To my favorite part of this whole thing and why I was able to convince our practice to go forward with it, again, was that idea of elevating patient education. Built into it, and again, you can kind of see this screen, This right here is the screen that you would see that will show you an objective, a lensometer, a subjective 1, a subjective 2, and an unaided. Literally with one button push, you can flip between any one of these, and within 10 seconds or less, 5 seconds or less, you have every lens switched over to their new prescription. Again, it is absolutely amazing what you can do when you show someone, that quick and easy from, hey, this is your subjective today, and this is what you have in your current glasses from your lensometer, that like, oh, is it really? I can't tell you how many times patients will like pull their head out from underneath the slit lamp, or excuse me, from the phoropter, try to grab their glasses and put it on because they don't believe that it's that significant of a change. And then they look at it and they're like, huh, yeah, that is, yep, that's right. It really kind of just slams the door on that, hey, there is a difference. We need to make a change. I personally use that subjective 1, subjective 2 a lot of times for varying levels of, say, an intermediate versus a near, or trying to explain to someone a progressive, say, hey, listen, if I fix your distance, you're going to get this. If I fix your near, you're going to get this. What happens to your computer? For that person that's kind of on the fence of like, well, I don't really need a progressive, or I don't really need that intermediate pair. You can show it to them instantaneously and have that wow factor right in front of them. And again, it really, really reinforces everything and allows that patient to kind of be involved in their own kind of care, if you will. This screen right here, again, also very quick, very easy to kind of see. With the VX130 and the VX120s, you'll get this screen that is a simulated no correction view versus a simulated like lower order aberration screen. The main one that I use this for is for my pediatric patients, and not necessarily to show the pediatric patients because they know what they're seeing, but more importantly to show the parent. When you have that 7-year-old or 8-year-old, or for that matter, 5-year-old, who is plus 50, minus 175, and they can fake their way through the chart, and they get down to 20, 25-ish, and they're missing their P's versus their F's, and the patient's parent says, oh yeah, they're still learning their letters, and they try to, brush it off, or they try to coach their kid. Come on, that letter, it's P, it's right there, you can see it. You can show this to that parent, and they get a much better sense really quickly of, oh man, well, I don't want my kid to see that, versus hearing their kid kind of read through it and half-heartedly kind of get some of the questions right. Again, that patient-parent buy-in, letting them kind of really see through, quote unquote, their own child's eyes, it puts that pressure on them to make a decision. And again, what I would again argue is the right decision. Don't make your kid work harder. Give them the tools to succeed. And in this era, with remote learning, I have prescribed and had filled more plus 50, minus 75 prescriptions than ever before in my life for 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. Because now those patients are coming in and saying, holy smokes, I have a headache, I have strain. The sheer volume of near work, what they're doing is exposing it. In a normal school classroom, that patient slides right through 2025, we write it off, they say good enough. Now when that 10-year-old complaining of a headache at the end of every day, this really, again, will help kind of the patient and the parent understand and reinforce that buy-in. The value selling, basically kind of been hitting on that. But the big thing here is when you are educating your patients and they see what they're missing out, it's easy. It's no longer a sell. And I know a lot of us don't like to feel like we're selling. I don't feel like I'm selling. I feel like I'm educating. I'm showing them this is the best. This is what you could see. Why would you want to see less than that? I try to, again, elicit from them, do you have headaches? Do you have strain? How do you feel at the end of the day? Do you have any difficulties when you've been staring at the computer and you look back up across the room? Do you have delays in focus? Do you feel like there's anything going on there? Having this time, by having things automated, it allows you to have the time to explain through to the patient, to really dive into it and, again, address the needs. If you think back to one of your first kind of days in clinic, you're supposed to address the chief complaint. oftentimes I think we lose that. Sometimes we start kind of going on our routine and we go through it, and we will maybe address the chief complaint, but we're not trying to elicit that secondary or tertiary complaint, and the patient might not even know until you show them or explore them. They might just think that's what I'm supposed to do. Having that little bit of extra time, whether it's 4 minutes or 6 minutes more, it will allow you to educate. That absolutely will translate into sales. I can promise you for sure. And that is how I was able to, again, no pun intended, sell my other co-owners on this technology. It was translating into sales and when we go out into the optical. It's now the optician reinforcing what the doctor has said, not the optician trying to feel like the upsell is going on out there. If you as a doctor say, yeah, you need a digital progressive, or you need a secondary pair for, you're a trader, you've got 4 monitors in front of you, they're all at 32 inches and they're at eye level. A progressive isn't going to work for you. We need to do something different. Your life is different than everybody else's. Let's make you a pair that's, an office lens, a computer lens. It's good for that and allows you to be successful at what you do. Those things now are in the patient's head. They've seen it. They've been able to see the differentiator of it before and after, with versus without. When they go out into the optical, the optician is basically helping style them. They're not having to reinforce any sales. It's just happening on its own. In recap, just in summary, again, I think you can tell that I'm fairly passionate about this technology. And again, the whole suite of technology, not just the VX65. I think the VX65 right now is huge, and it's really, really, really great in this era from the idea of that 6 feet social distancing. There's no way that you can do this with, the manual phoropter. If you have that in your office, unfortunately, you're forced to be right there in their face for that period of time. I literally am sitting 10 feet away. I'm running from a tablet. Not only do I feel safe, the patient feels safe, the patient feels comfortable. Your patients, again, will feel that kind of that wow factor, that, wow, this is different. This is not, I've never had that done before. Well, shoot, you're doing the same exact thing. It just feels different to the patient. You elevate your overall patient experience for them as well. And they're really, really wowed by it, which again, will translate out to kind of that, hey, we got another sale. We're moving things in our right direction. We are having that integrated workflow and kind of just moving into the new, kind of the usual of what we do, right? How could you do it? How are you doing it currently? I was laughing the other night. We had a lovely little rainstorm here in Chicagoland, and I had to go downstairs and check on my basement, make sure my sump pump was still working. And lo and behold, down there, I have a manual keratometer, my old slit lamp, it's sitting there, collecting dust without a camera on it, an old manual phoropter. I'm thinking, wow, that's how I used to do it. And now it is literally sitting in my basement as kind of a relic. And I feel like those things are kind of relics at this point. When we have these tools out there for us, it is a really, really, really nice thing to have. And again, I think that, Linode Technology and Visionix have it hammered down, and just that full kind of experience that allows us to do what we need to do, educate the patient, counsel them, get them where they want to go. And again, you can be the best advocate for the patient, which will, again, breed loyalty, further patients. 1 leads to 2, leads to 4, leads to 8. And that's what we all need right now, is to have those patients come back, fill our opticals, fill our exams, and be good patients that are loyal for us going forward. It is that foundation for value selling, as we kind of hammered on. You don't have to sell. It isn't a sell when you're telling truth. When you are showing them what it is, it shouldn't feel like a sale. It should just feel like you are trying to give the best to the patient, and you now have the time to do that. You're not having to pick and choose your battles. You can have the time to kind of have that foundation for them. With that, I think it's time to turn it back to Adam and see if you guys had any questions. Again, you can see the website right up there from Linode Technologies. Again, if you go here to this website, they will have plenty of other information up there, way more than what I would have. But again, I have kind of the firsthand experience of working with it for 5-6 years at this point.
All right. Well, thank you, Jordan. That was really cool. So let me pull up these questions here. Let me see what we have going on. Let me get the tab open, and we can go over here. So here's an interesting question, marketing question. So Obviously you mentioned that you could stay 6 feet apart from the patient. Do you let patients know that even before they come in? Do you like tout that or advertise it in any way?
So we did, when we first started back, so we were shut down from March 20th through May 2nd. Again, I think as most, right? And we were able to go back May 2nd when elective procedures were again re-allowed here in Illinois. With that, we basically kind of had changed our website around and tried to kind of just tell people what we were doing. We did send out a questionnaire that's, kind of your COVID questionnaire and what have you. Our staff was doing a really good job of just kind of, I would say, allaying the fears of people. We didn't overly harp on it, again, in the sense that a lot of our patients already knew. For new patients, we definitely do let them know, like, hey, listen, we are doing things to keep you safe. It will be different than what you're kind of used to. You won't have people in there. And some people, again, as everybody, we have some that are concerned and some that absolutely are not concerned at all. But we definitely, with the new patients, we did. The good thing is at this point, we've been doing this for, 5 or 6 years, 6 years, I think, at this point with this technology. So our patients are, kind of aware. And again, that word of mouth, as I was speaking of, this trickles back. It is absolutely, a patient comes into our office, they go back into their workplace after being the first time in there, and they tell them, listen, the dude was running it from a tablet. Like, you got to see this thing. I mean, I feel like I'm in the future. And so again, I don't think that we did necessarily a huge market, but I think you absolutely could. And especially if you're bringing this in, I would be sending out blog posts and everything else, throwing it up on Instagram. We do show our things on Instagram. We do show it, on Facebook. We have Facebook videos. We've talked through that. So again, people get a feel for what they're going to go through before they even get there.
Right. Cool. So another real 2020 style question here. People wearing masks, how do you deal with fogging, or are there any fogging issues?
Yes. So we do have fogging issues. Again, I try to have people keep it as tight around their nose as we can, have patients, kind of press and pull back on their ear straps, things like that. I do keep a cleaning cloth handy, as many, I joke with people, again, if you're old enough to get this joke, I'm like, here's my ShamWow. I have a very, very large cleaning cloth that I'm kind of, constantly wiping down. I do kind of preface it with the patient because, again, sometimes patients won't let you know as well. Hey, listen, this has a tendency to fog right now. If it does, please let me know. Don't just say I can't see either, or, just make an arbitrary decision. If it was good and now all of a sudden it's really bad, let me know. But we are definitely still, we're still fighting the fog battles, if you will.
Right. Question here, I guess it's an internet question. Can these exams be done from a different location?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one and a great one. And I didn't mention it, but speaking with Melissa, who is kind of my close contact at Lino Technologies, she told me, she's like, that you can run this, from your home if you wanted to. And I was like, well, I guess I kind of assumed you could because you guys have remoted in on TeamViewer to do updates and things like that, but I never really had kind of processed that as a way. But you absolutely do have the ability through kind of a TeamViewer type thing to run absolutely everything, as long as you could get a patient seated and in front of there and lined up. So if you had a technician, get them in the chair and put them there, you could run everything remotely as long as there was kind of an audio feedback back and forth or some kind of a video feedback back and forth. Yes, you could.
Wow. Question here, does the device check for prism?
Yes, so it does have a prism. Basically prism dial on there, just as you would your Jackson cross cylinder, versus again flip the dial the other way. Again, when you look at the kind of the manual phoropter looking mode that I use, you just kind of spin the prism up, spin the prism down. As far as your kind of standard binocular balance, you can program it to automatically have it in with 3 up, 3 down, whatever you'd like to do there. So again, I have mine kind of set that way. So when I do binocular balance, I hit one button, flip, boom, it's there. I hit one button, flip, out, done. But that does have prism just as you would have on your manual phoropter.
Right. Question here, this is interesting. So you mentioned that you have different setups at your different locations, right? You have one where the pretest is outside, and you have the other one where everything is all in one place. Do you have a preference for either setup, and have you noticed that any one is more efficient than the other?
So the unfortunate thing with this COVID is I have only been at the location that has everything in the office. So I have not yet been able to experience the outside of the exam room, well, outside the exam room, kind of the pre-test area versus in the exam room. I have spoken closely with my doctor, Dr. Wozni down there, and literally day one, when we set it up the other way, she texts me after like patient number 3, and she's like, I absolutely love this. You need to switch over to this mode right away, right? So she absolutely prefers the outside of the exam room and then have the patients come in. Like I said, we're trying, kind of, it was the start back up, if you will, to do that. I'm a little bit torn. Like I said, and I can't harp on this enough. I truly believe in educating the patient. And I feel that, again, my time with them that's the value. That's what I'm bringing to the table. That's what differentiates us. So I kind of like part of it. I do like being able to talk the patient through, hey, as this is going on, this blue light is doing pachymetry. It's measuring, the thickness of your cornea. We can look for swelling. We can look for these things. Now this bright red one where you feel like you're a Pop-Tart in a toaster. This one is looking at, kind of the corneal curvature, and we're going to look to see if there's any astigmatism, any irregularities there, and kind of talking them through those points. Not, again, that you couldn't have a tech do it, but I don't like necessarily the idea of a push button per se and have the patient just feel like they're cattle being moved through. Again, I think if you train the techs the right way, it could be good. Dr. Natalie is absolutely over the moon preferring that other mode. Again, I've been doing it the other way for, 12 years and for 6 years automated. Maybe, again, I'm more, I guess, old school in the new school, if you will, right now. But I guess I could relinquish some of that control. Maybe that's the control freak in me too.
Right. And you mentioned, of course, techs handling a lot of this in that one setup. How much did it actually take to get the techs up to speed, to work well with the device and to get the tests done accurately?
So I would say literally 50 seconds. I mean, if you let them run through it once with the equipment, it is that push button. So if we're going back to, the whole suite, if you go from the lensometer, the auto lensometer, to a VX 120, 130 into the tablet mode, again, it is place the patient, it's auto align, it does everything. Now, again, are there, sometimes where, the patient moves this, that, and the other? Yeah, there'd be some problem solving there that, they'd have to learn some of those. But I think, again, for the most part, if you have a pretty good patient base, you could get them up and running and, hey, get them there, put their chin on it and go. And then after a couple of times, you could show them, hey, if this happens, I need you to retake that. That doesn't make any sense. One eye showing up at minus 26 because the patient moved in the middle of it. One eye showing up at Plano. That's probably not truth. Run it again for me. Don't have them automatically come into the room. The beauty of the suite, though, is, again, that everything feeds forward into what's called the VX box, which is kind of a local area server that's right there built in. And then that data is automatically piped into your VX65 in your phoropter. So you see all that data, whether it's collected in the room, out of the room, wherever, you see it all in front of you. And again, that data can be integrated and is integrated with push button into your EHR. So, the tech doesn't have to do much other than line them up, sit them there and hit end exam. And at that point, the system's automated. It kicks everything through to you and you're ready to roll. And now all you're doing is a quick, kind of go through your refraction and educate. It's that simple.
Right. Oh, person clarified his question here. He was asking about the auto lensometer. Can that check prism?
Oh, yes, it absolutely does. It does check prism. It checks prism. And again, it's a wavefront lensometer. So it's different in the sense that, again, you will actually be able to see progressive designs where corridors are, the width of a progressive on one versus the other, which again, from that standpoint is really nice and kind of, I would say, good for your engineer patient. The person who's still complaining after you've given them the best and the widest and everything else. Well, if I look way off to the left, I'm getting some peripheral blur, like, hey, that's the limits of human technology that we have right now, but it will literally show that. And so you could even put it on there. And again, it's interesting that, if you do that and you kind of go through, you could see, hey, here's a Shamir lens. Here's a Verilux lens. Here's a stock progressive from my local lab. You can see those variants right there. So you can check prism, zones, everything right there. And again, single, drop it, auto aligns and goes.
Right. Here's an interesting question. This I wouldn't have even thought about, but you're using a tablet all day. What's the battery life on this thing? Has it ever croaked out before you got to the end of a patient day?
So yes, it is absolutely. It has the newer version, the newer tablet that I have has been good. I mainly leave it plugged in, in between patients for sure. If you shut the screen off, in between, which is totally easy to do. I mean, you just turn the screen off and on, you'll be able to get through a day. You at the end of the day, and when I say a day, it depends on your day, but my day is basically, usually about a 9 to 10 hour in the office, from the time we start it to the time we close it down type of thing. You'll be able to get through a day. And if you plug it in, periodically or over a lunch break, for sure you'll be able to get it in. I just try to make it a habit that I plug it in between. We have a stand that we have put it up, like a tablet stand that has sat, again, pre-COVID, that sat on my desk right next to it. So I was just kind of running it from there. Now, mind you, at that point, I'm not 6 feet away. I'm probably 3.5 feet away. But that way it stayed plugged in the entire time. Now in COVID, I'm unplugging and scooting back a little bit.
Right. And I guess the follow-up question to that one then is, over time, I think we all have iPads here. We all know what happens, right? The battery life starts getting shorter. What's it like? Have you had to replace any of the tablets yet?
Yep. So again, I've had the technology for 6 years. I've replaced the tablet one time at each location. The most recent tablet malfunction was a Jordan Jones malfunction, most likely. So again, I can't blame it on anything else, but I dropped it, and that usually doesn't work out very well for you. So the screen kind of opened, and then that caused the battery to start swelling on me, which I didn't realize that's what it was. I was like, oh, what's this pushy, flushy thing in the back of it? And when I sent it over to the lovely folks at Lenovo Technologies, they're like, it looks like your battery is about ready to just explode on you. And I was like, oh, that's probably because I dropped it. My bad, But again, to their credit, and again, rewind it back one thing, one of the reasons we chose Lenovo Technology and Visionix equipment was, for us, they were there, right? We had, you can see up at the top, right? I mean, they do Brio, they have some of those other things. We had their edges. We had worked with them in the past. And so we had a good working relationship with them, and we knew that they stood behind things. We knew that they were responding to things. We knew that if we needed something, they were going to be there for us. And I can tell you, again, that day that tablet broke for me, it wouldn't work. And again, I'm in Chicago, so they have facility here. I had a new tablet in my hands within an hour and 45 minutes. Now, we drove up there really quick to grab one, but I called Melissa. She had their staff get it ready and typed in ready for me, had all the stuff in so that, again, my staff went and grabbed it, came right back down. I literally missed 2 patients. That was it, and I had it. Now, you can have a backup tablet, and that's probably a wiser thing to do. And again, if you did have that issue, all you have to do is basically authorize that other tablet, which again is just one phone call. Only one is authorized at a time, kind of like a single user license type of situation. But you could call them, and they quickly, again, that could be a phone call in 30 seconds. Say, okay, this one is down. I need this one up and running as a replacement backup. And the tablet, again, it's a Samsung Galaxy Tab, so it's not a $1,000 tablet. It is a more basic tablet, and it's not crazy costing if you do need to replace them.
Right. Do I even dare ask, since it is a Samsung tablet, could you actually procure one and have them set it up for you if you were in a hurry?
Yes. So the first time, that is exactly what I did the first time. I reached out to kind of the head, and I said, hey, listen, here's the deal. I feel like my tablet battery life, the plug-in is going bad, and I feel the end is near, and I don't want that end to happen on a day where I got 16 patients rolling through the door type of thing. And they were kind enough, and they sent over and they said, hey, go try to find this, Samsung Galaxy Tab A or whatever it is with this model number. And I, was able to get it off of Amazon and had it there for me. And then again, download the software, which is in an app, and then get the code from them, and it will work for you. So, I mean, it is possible. I will say again, it was much easier to just get a tablet where they had everything already done for me. So in that case, it's always nice to be like, just, hey, straight from them, where they have everything done the way that they want to, and it's ready to rock right out. So it's just plug it in and go type of thing. But it is possible.
Right. Great. Question here. What happens if the internet goes out? Can you still run exams?
Yes. So it's Bluetooth connectivity. So you can still run everything, again, just via the Bluetooth connection. You don't need internet to run anything. If you were doing, again, obviously a remote, like a team viewer type thing, you'd be done. But again, so would everybody. But because it is a Bluetooth connection, it would work. The Visionix, the VX box itself, again, is on a local area network. So again, it's local, and it broadcasts its own signal to within those pieces of equipment. So they actually talk internally, not necessarily to the outside world. So again, it is secured within your system. And then the data, again, is extracted out. Basically, at this point, they've upgraded to an XML version. So it's piped right out. And again, you just have to talk to your EHR provider and again, give kind of the license to get behind firewalls to do it. But yes, you do not need internet to run it.
Right. And you mentioned before TeamViewer. So the way they set you up, the company can actually come in and help you remotely. Is that correct? And then you can sort of do like a Zoom kind of a thing?
Absolutely. I mean, again, the staff for them will, if I have a problem, they are able to, with one phone call, come in, basically take over my system and get in there to the nuts and bolts. And whether it's an update that needs to be done, whether there's an error, whether I changed a feature that shouldn't have done and it's not connecting. And again, it's one of the Jordan Jones errors, which there's a lot of them, I promise. And my wife will tell you there's more, but they can fix all those things remotely, and again, they know their stuff. I mean, they know how to get to the problem. They can quickly get in there and say, hey, this is what it is. And if it's at all possible, they can do it remotely. If it's a physical thing, again, if the head moved or something like that, yeah, there's a different story there, but no, they can do everything remotely. I'm interested. Again, I'm going to just play with it. I want to try the remote version. Again, it goes against everything that's holy to me of patient experience and being there and being able to see and touch and feel and talk to them. But I do want to have that idea of like, hey, if I was out of the office on a day and a patient came in and just needed a quick refraction RX check and they're leaving out of town, maybe I could, pull over to the side of the road and quickly have my staff say, hey, have them sit down there real quick. Let's throw this up there. And if I do this or this, if I take that cylinder out, does that get rid of it for you? Oh yeah, that fixes it. Perfect. And be able to do it remotely. That might be nice for some of those type of things rather than trying to squeeze those in on another day.
Absolutely. All right, great. Well, we're just about out of time, but this video will be up on ODwire so people can watch the archive, and we'll have a little discussion thread running underneath it. So Jordan, if you want to come back and, maybe answer some more questions, because I'm sure there's going to be about 50 million more.
Absolutely.
People are always shy. It's funny. People are kind of shy usually on the night of, but boy, if you just put up a video and then just give them a comment section afterwards, it's just people just unload. So yeah, I suspect we're going to get a big conversation around it.
I would be more than happy. And again, I can say that I think that all of us want to be safe. All of us, need our practices to feel normal, even though things aren't normal. And I think this VX65, again, it's a really nice tool to let you feel that way, and still upgrade your practice and do some things that will make you feel, again, maybe revitalized and invigorated to do a refraction if you've just been tired of doing refractions for 25 years too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for showing up tonight. And again, the Apple Watch raffle, I'm going to be drawing that after this is done. And you'll get an email if you're the lucky winner. And otherwise, we're going to talk about it as well on ODwire. So again, thanks everyone. And I will see you all online.
Thanks, guys.